So how do you feel? How do you feel? What's your?
Where do we stand?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Do you have any liquor?
Exactly. I mean, I am a pretty devout conservative and not totally thrilled with where we are or who we have, but that's kind of where I am. So
I don't vote, so I can't say.
Exactly.
what policies don't you like that he's that?
It's more of a character thing for me. It's more of a character. It's a two-handed thing. It's like on one hand, I think he's probably everything in essence that we need, and then on the other hand, it's like...
What bugs you about him?
He just, to me, I hold the office in a super high regard. In a lot of ways. There's something about the office that requires a certain degree of...
Decorum.
That's a good word. Yes, and
Finesse.
and as much as he may be what we need, I don't know that he respects the office enough. And to me, the office is a pretty high regard.
I would beg to differ in the fact that I look at his actions. I've talked to enough people that know him personally.
Really?
Well, that's what I love about being out here.
Yeah.
Because I never know who the hell's going to walk up to me and say anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've gotten to speak to 2 Secret Service agents that protect him.
Really?
I've got to speak to people that have done business with
Thoughts,
him.
opinions, what do they have?
I haven't spoken to anybody yet that personally knows him, has done business with him, that doesn't like him.
Really?
Yeah.
That's something to be said.
Or doesn't have in
I
some...
think he's very magnanimous.
Very much so. Very much so.
But I'm old school when it comes to stuff like that. Like with her, like I hate Twitter. I hate the whole concept of it. I think it's ruining everything. And so using that as a platform, while I understand it, I think it is way beneath a government official, much less the office of the president.
Now, this is interesting having Computer Guy come out and...
He is the internet.
I hate it.
Well, and indeed, the argument is a lot, of course, that it is taking away, sucking a lot of our humanity out. There was recently a poll
just such
where
instant gratification.
43% of the millennials would rather communicate over the internet than person.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's...
It's such instant gratification, which leaves very little room. I mean, why do you think, like, speeches go through weeks of edits and revisions and things like that? Because it's like, once you say it, it's out there.
Yeah.
And you got to be really careful. And so I think we both kind of feel the same way about, like, you know, if you just shoot something off, you always, I mean, your gut reaction is always going to be the most.
So you think his tweets are too instantaneous? In other words, he's being...
Well, I think there are...
I personally just don't think he has enough. Well, it's hard to say, like, how someone, like, quantifies respect, but for me, it's just a matter of, I think that he came in as the outsider, which is, in my opinion, what we needed. Like, I'm all about having a non-politician in office. 100%.
Anti-establishment was all the rage.
Yeah. You know. So like, I don't. I get that 100%. But I think he came in with that persona and kind of, along with it, wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And so, in my opinion, it's a situation of yes. The system needs...
Sometimes it's good to shoot the baby in the cradle if it's a Hitler.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I understand your argument.
My argument is just that you should respect the processes and the system in place, and you have to at some point work within the system, but do it your own way and whatever. And I it's a total double-handed thing. I mean, we talk about it all the time.
If I may, and let me interject this, because it intertwines both the past and what we're going through. Change, of course, is going to be inevitable. There's no way in the world we can go ahead and all that we can try to harness the technology and so it doesn't overwhelm us, because you know, AI and robotics, I've talked to guys who build these machines, tell me that they're building the machines that are going to eventually kill us.
Oh yeah, no, they're gonna. It's
so, you know, like, which is another insanity. There's for a whole nother argument.
It's like the end of the movie War Games,
well, indeed,
where they run the whole scenario.
Yeah,
and they're gonna figure out it's us.
But is
they're gonna? No, I mean that's what the AI is gonna. They're gonna get because there's not emotion involved in that. So it's like economists when they, you know, when they run their models, they use people that are rational, and people aren't rational as a
no, right, so, right, of course not.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you should embrace change and you should embrace that new technology. But when you do that, you need to realize that you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Well, you have to control it. Again, you can't let it's a tool. It's a tool. It's like anything else. It's a tool. Yeah. And if you abuse anything too much, you drink too much water, you're gonna die. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a tool. You use it. It's like a gun. It's a tool. You use it. You abuse that, you go to jail. I mean, I know just personal experience from using calculators. I used to be able to, in my head, add, subtract, and multiply. Now I have to grab a calculator. I used to remember 20,
phone numbers.
Phone numbers. No,
everybody knew their phone number.
Right.
Everybody knew 20, 30 phone numbers.
Right. So they went organically. But on the flip side of that, when you look at, because organically things are going to change anyway, our governance is going to change organically because of the application of technology, which is why he used the internet rather than TV to win this election.
Right, but he
won on Twitter.
They're trying to do that, but they're holding on to constructs that the founding fathers knew that were going to change that have not truly changed yet.
But could they anticipate, or were they genius enough, and some people say they were, to anticipate this?
I think that, we're about to get screaming at each other, but it's like with gun control. But they had no concept of a gun that was going to happen in the future. And so, I mean, when that law was introduced, or when the Bill of Rights was, I mean, it was a single-shot musket. You know, I mean, so it was,
I think they were pretty much aware of that, because weapons have always evolved. They didn't ever say that, this is the old. They come along and say this is the ultimate weapon, but somebody back of them was going, no, it isn't. Watch this.
Yeah, so if you think about how fast it changed from sticks and stones, from the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and then you get into the Industrial Revolution, when they start actually being able to mass produce stuff. Before that, with a musket, there was some mass production, but nothing on the frame.
Then we can expand. We got weapons, right? We have biological weapons, if they leak out, are going to kill us.
Right.
So, we can get into a whole realm of what we're really good at killing ourselves. And if we do nothing else, mankind has the gold standard medal Oscar of thinking up different ways to kill ourselves. That's the one thing we are really, that we don't take second place in anything. We do that real well.
Very well.
But
so I think that a lot of times people are trying to use the future and the past, I guess, kind of more is what I was saying, is that people are trying to change for the future but talk about it in the past.
But this is why I'm saying organically, with the use of how the internet is already changing politics. Give me an example. Let me give you a basic principle of why we needed government to begin with was because why? Because we needed someone to speak for us. And of course, the basic government really was brought up by the elites who gained control of all the resources and said, we have to figure out a way to keep it there and use these guys to mine it. So, and not get too upset with us. So they invented government. But as it goes along, us pesky people would keep on going, we want more, we want more. And of course, they slap us down until the screams started kicking them in the shins, and they'd go, okay, here's a little something for you. And we built up to this. We came to America, and all of a sudden, for the first time, us ordinary guys got a big chunk of what we wanted. Well, a big chunk for us, but still a little bit for the big guys, but more than they deemed they want to pull it out there. Because once you get the taste of this freedom thing, so the whole thing came about where, in the past, we needed still government and the politicians. Why? Space and time was the problem. We couldn't get there. We were on the farm. Yeah. We were busy.
Yeah, so we'd say because people are on the internet. People are
well, then let me qualify. if space and time is not the problem anymore because of the internet, because we're already changing the way things operate in government with our comments online, signing petitions, coalitions, forming movements, and even having revolutions that have started online. So it's organically being integrated into the technology already. We're changing the governance of how it works. So my point is, why don't we just keep on going with that? Why don't we take it to the degree where we write our own legislation, we vet it, and then we voted on it, and then cut these guys out altogether that say they represent us, but often never do.
Solution, but it's a little pie in the sky.
I think it's already happening organically. As I say, it's already. They're going to fight tooth and nail to keep the power.
I totally agree that popular opinion has way too much to do in politics as it currently is, because the reality is everybody that can get on Twitter does not necessarily have the intellectual knowledge and ability and know-how and understanding of everything going on.
That wouldn't matter.
But it does matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
Not matter.
Because no one pays attention to the fools any of you but the other fools. The only people that ever change the course of history are this small group of dedicated people. The rest of them are followers.
Clue of what they're saying, though.
That's why no one pays attention to them.
But you're saying that we should all write the law. So
right,
not a small group of people should write the law, or everybody should write.
Open source. Put your 2 cents in. Good ideas float, bad ones fall to the wayside.
So who deems the good idea?
We do. Thomas Jefferson said, I trust the common man come up with the solutions to his problem more than any elite can.
True, but there's a reason.
So if we sit down
to a republic, there's a reason that we're a republic, because the reality is, I don't want all of these idiots on the streets putting laws into motion. They're idiots and they haven't thought things through. They can't. But they haven't thought things through. They're not educated. It wouldn't make it,
again, if it's open. So let me give you an example how it would work. All right, you come home after a hard day, what's happening in the hood? You type in, with your social security number or whatever, to the, to your zip code or to your district or whatever the hell, those go to your zip code. And you go, what's happening in the hood? Oh man, hey, Frank's selling that lot down the street. I'd make a good kids park. Put that in there, Other people come home, what's happening in the hood? Hey, kids park. Hey, I do construction. I do landscape. I'm going to put in the bid. And everybody you become more involved. You're absolutely directly involved. Open source, no behind.
Super pie in the sky.
Every idea and every great thing that ever started with a pie in the sky idea. Those things exist.
But that's with the assumption, though, that everybody thinks their choices through in a context.
And they would be thought through. It's not like you get home that day and you vote on it.
So let me ask you this about open source.
Yeah.
So what happens when the open source becomes monetized? Because that's the way it does. That's the way open source it does. Is if you look with Windows versus Linux and Unix. So Linux is based off of Unix. That's a computer, that's an operating system. So basically, that's what happened. And Bill Gates took programs that were open source and he put his name on them, and now he sells those. Excel, Word, PowerPoint. So he took an open source item and then he commoditized it. And that's what's going to happen in your thing. So you're going to have this open source. People are going to have these great ideas, and then somebody's going to figure out how to make money off of it.
Why not just have a complete separate entire section just for this purpose? Cannot be monetized. It's just government. It's just us.
Somebody.
I don't get what it is. Somebody, they can put it in. We'll vote it down. It doesn't have to be monetized. Why? I understand the need for people wanting to make a profit, but we're talking about us functioning as a government. Does not need. So we would vote our own. How to fund things.
Well, I will tell you that in California, that's how it works. Not to a T, but that there are with the propositions, and so there's tons and tons of laws where that has happened, where these interest groups have gotten propositions onto.
We're talking about interest groups, not individuals. We're talking individuals here, not interest groups.
No, not interest groups. Interest groups. People are interest groups, whether they're
Yeah, but they would
Opensource
not be put into organizations that would carry a clout beyond their individual purpose. In other words, there's...
That's what I'm saying. So in California, that's what they have done.
No, I know that.
And so there's this interest group that wants a park. There's this interest groups that wants to pay the teachers more.
Believe me, I'm not trying to model it off of California.
No, but I'm not trying to, I'm saying that is, in your, like, with it being pie in the sky, in my opinion, yes, in a perfect world, what you're talking about is awesome.
I think it's going to happen whether we like it or not. I think it's going to gravitate towards that.
You're going to get into that. My point is that
it's turning into mob rules the problem.
The California is the bad.
Again, no.
It's mob rule, and the reality is,
it's not mob rule because it's you
understand. And not a democracy.
How many?
Like, there's a reason why that's how we were set up, because everybody doesn't deserve an equal say.
And they would,
if you don't
again,
put in the time and effort to understand what you're talking about, you do not get the same.
How long? Let me give you an example. How long if someone came up right now and entered this conversation and really had very little to add? I mean, they either through their intellect or in ignorance or for whatever reason, all they could do is just sit here and give us a couple of lame platitudes. Would they be considered in this argument? Would we consider them? No, we'd placate them, but it's as far as adding to the conversation, they wouldn't add anything, correct?
So what happens when you're placated?
Well, you have this, like right now, if, let's say I was a Democrat and I got upset by the vote, I got to live with that.
Okay.
You got to live. You got to live that that's life. You got to live if your idea is rejected. If you're a dumbass, okay, you're going to live the rest of your life knowing you're a dumbass. I'm sorry, I got nothing to do with that. So, I mean, life is, and it is what it is. It would happen. So the bad ideas that you're afraid of wouldn't have a chance.
I'm not afraid of bad ideas.
They wouldn't have a chance because we would always be there to go, now. Get out of here.
I feel like Twitter is the perfect example.
But Twitter is
rule.
But no, they're not voting on anything. That's not the Twitter right there.
If you really honestly think that popular opinion has no bearing on current political policy across the board, then you're just being naive.
I think you're, by using Twitter as a barometer,
it's an example.
It's not a barometer.
It's an example.
Well, I think it's a bad example.
Okay, social media in general.
Because we're not talking about where things can be researched out. We're talking about, 168 characters here. Give you you can't express large ideas or, propose legislation on Twitter. I mean, I'm talking about a format where you come in and you go, this is my proposal. It gets vetted out by lawyers that get on and go, look at this.
The argument that so you're proposing something that's not necessarily already in motion, okay? A future, picture of something. What I'm saying is that we have an example of what you're talking about.
I think it's a bad
social media today. And all it does is
this is beyond social media that we're talking about governance here. So it's not, you're talking about social media. It's a whole nother vitamin. This is apples and oranges.
How is social media not
what you're talking about?
Because we're not talking.
I don't understand how social media and this
because it's not something, you're not doing anything on Twitter that's going to affect your life immediately. When we're talking about governance of what's happening around you happens to you and you have input into it, then that's a whole other thing than just saying, this on Twitter. I mean, putting your eye out there, in Twitter, that's not the same thing.
Put forth the same opinions and the same thought process and the same effort and time.
And then we would work it, and we would hash them out in an open forum like this, and the bad ideas would get beaten down. We'd go, you're an idiot, get out of here.
The mob would rule. It wouldn't matter about intellectual capacity or, any type of real bearing of information or knowledge or anything. I mean, it would be mob rule. It's whatever the majority would come to is what would always pull through. I mean, that's exactly how everything moves in this society today. I mean, the government, and believe me, I think there are a million things wrong with our current system of government, but I'm just saying, the only thing is that the little bit of system that we have set in place that prevents the public from having complete mob rule.
Maybe it's just me out here talking to people I meet on the street. I actually have faith in my fellow man. I actually think we have, believe me, I have enough idiots on video to go ahead and prove that, contrary to that argument. But I still, being out here, from talking to, all walks of life, from people around the world, I'm always getting reinforcement on the fact that we can do it.
Well, because everyone thinks they can.
I don't think it's a bias.
They can be.
If there's I don't think it's a bias,
make policy better than anybody else.
It's not like
Let me be the guy that's.
You don't get to be this age without being cynical. I'm one of the most cynical son of a bitches you'll ever meet. But I still have faith in my fellow man enough to above
the original. I have faith in the system as it's designed to be, and it needs tweaking, and it failed in a lot of ways, but it was created in a time when people were the most distrustful of government. It was literally created in a time when people were the most distrustful of government, and there's got to be some bearing to that. There's got to be some reason
don't you think,
why the parameters and the things that were set
Don't
work.
you think that's the way since I've been around, 50% of this populace of this country was so distrustful of the government they didn't participate in even voting in it. It's still that way.
Okay.
So we still got a great deal of people that
people aren't involved because they're not involved because they're lazy. It's nothing more than that.
Well, I think this because they're not just one factor. I think there's a lot of factors that might go in on that. I've met a lot of people who just they realize that the system they think that their vote doesn't count. That any participation in a corrupt system is no participation.
That's an easy way to say that. That's a noble reason to say that.
It's also a very uneducated reason of understanding the system. Point in case why the common person does not need to be making policy. Because if you don't understand our electoral system and you don't understand the electoral college, then you're right. You don't need to be responsible for creating policy. Because the people that don't understand where their vote falls into the greater scheme do not need to be.
And again, I don't see where their voice would matter. Let's say we were in the hood. We're back in the hood again. We're making a proposal. Mm-hmm. And Joe Schmo down the street, who only pops in maybe once a month, who we know is a ex-convict, drug addict, right, and an idiot.
Oh, okay.
But then we have this guy down the block over here. Well, he's got a PhD. He's got several successful businesses. He's a well-known philanthropist. He's this, that, and the other.
So is he also cheating on his wife and sleeping with little babies? Let's just throw that in there because you threw Joe Schmo down the street as this horrible person. So you've got this guy that's a brilliant
I'm just saying,
philanthropist, and you got a guy that's a complete degenerate. So let's get somewhere more moderate.
All right, let's make some out. The guy down the street's a doctor, and this guy over here really hasn't. He owns a shoe shine shop.
Okay.
So it's right. The guy and we're talking. I don't know. Maybe the guy's So we'll make him an engineer, so he'll have make a better example.
A doctor, an engineer, or a doctor?
No, we have an engineer. We have the guy that owns the shoe shine shop.
Okay, perfect. Because we need to throw the.
And we're talking about building this park. We want to make it a kids park with all these rides. Well, when the engineer puts his 2 cents in, he's going to carry more weight about building these structures for the kids, structural engineer, than the guy that owns the shoe shine shop. So if he weighs in on this, he's going to naturally carry the weight of the conversation. We tend to believe him more. We would go gravitate more towards his.
I wish that were true. But
I so wish that were true.
Because the reality is there's going to be somebody who that guy
louder,
cut off.
Bigger, right.
That guy cut off, and he's an asshole because he doesn't mow his lawn.
Now you're just bringing up examples
that's the reality of how people are.
That's the argument. The concept of the argument.
We're just kind of rambling.
So he doesn't understand where he came in, and he doesn't understand the premise of the argument.
So he wants to have an open source code based government where you come on and you log on and you say, oh, there's a empty lot down the street. Let's have a park. And then somebody else comes and says, that's a great idea. And then another person comes and says, yeah, let's get that done.
So it's
and so as a collective, we determine what sort of government is going to happen.
You see, it all started because he's involved with internet IT. You know.
Like ideal democracy, what you want.
Well, indeed, but the blending I'm seeing of what's been in the past is integrating itself into things like technologies that we're inventing. That's why he didn't get elected by appearing on TV. He got elected by tweeting. It was a new technology. It was a new thing that he used. It was a tool that now we're all using because we're not getting our news from these guys anymore.
What's your objective? What do you want? Like, what's your ideal objective? What do you want?
It's like open source government. So basically,
Well, I want us to rule directly, direct democracy.
I'm Israeli. I don't know how many people you have here in the States. It's like 300 million. How many do you have?
Yeah, about 340, 50 million.
You want 300 million people to say, like,
Collectively.
collectively their opinions about what? About everything?
anything
They want, yeah.
And who will organize it? And who will...
We would.
order-
the people.
Who's who? Who's we?
We would.
You who?
As I said, whatever details
I
working
live,
out
in
here.
this, I live in this neighborhood. Let's say I live in this neighborhood, and I have, I don't know, a sewer somewhere here, and I want to build a kindergarten here. Because my children don't have a place to play, and I want them to play here.
Yeah.
Who will take care of it? You?
Well, that's it. I'm saying you come home, and let's say the lot down the street, you want to have a kids park. I was using that example. And you type in, well, I know the guy that owns that. I can sell for a good price. You say, so you type in, I'm proposing we buy Joe's lot and put in a kids park.
And if I'm a friend of Joe's and I have how do you say it? I have relationship and I have interest to promote Joe.
You're a
Well, you know,
contractor. You're a contractor.
yeah, say you come home and you live in the neighborhood and you're a contractor and you go, that's a good idea. I'm a contractor. I'm going to put in the bid, so it'd be open source.
That will work only in free situations.
Well, it's like, what about the things that nobody thinks they care about until it happens? Sewers, exactly. Things that nobody specifically cares about until it's a problem.
No, now I understand what you said. You said you have trust of the fellow man, right? But you have to have trust of 300 million people that they are totally objective and they want only the best of...
Again, the ones that aren't, because most people indeed don't give a crap. They probably wouldn't participate anyway. I said, we already got 50% of our populace that's out there. Could care less who the hell's ruling them. They don't give a crap. That percentage might increase a bit more. People knew they actually could have an impact on what goes on around them. So there might be more participation. But there's always going to be that percentage of people, the betas, that they're followers. They're going to listen to the people, that leaders that have the ideas, that have the education, that have the initiative, that know we'll need sewers, will be putting them in, and so, we'll be the leaders anyway. The leaders rise to the top now, but what we get in the system, what we have now, is psychopaths that rise to the top. Not so much the most qualified. These are the ones that are just putting themselves out there because I can lie the best.
But there's a big difference between changing your shitty voting system and doing what you say.
Oh, I'm not saying none of this is going to be easy. You have, for one, the powers that be.
His point actually was maybe the most effective. Like, you're saying you have a distrust of, like, this small group of people, and this small distrust of this small group of people, you now expect to, like, translate into trust for the entire population of people.
I have more trust, like Jefferson. I have more trust in the common man to come up with the solutions to his problems than any elite group does.
I think that we need more, like, shorter term limits. I think that career politicians are probably our biggest issue in our government today. I'm going to go with
a good way to start it would be term limits, and that's what the original. Yeah.
Okay, because people that have no repercussions to the decisions that they make don't make decisions in the best interest of the people. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that's true. But there has to be a system. I mean, just like anything else, there has to be a system in which we all agree on, that say we work within the confines of this system. This, and the system might need to be changed. It does. And I'm not saying, and I agree with you that, and both of you came to the same point, that the original systems that were created are not necessarily 100% applicable to where we are today. Like, what was created 200 years ago is not necessarily exactly where we are today. but there's got to be a system. There's got to be a system.
Only because it's been drilled into your head that the elites have told you, you need us. Well, man, if you don't have us wise people running around, if you don't have us, we're going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we're good. You're right. You're totally
Have a good day.
Put down Trump.
Absolutely.